All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm here with a band that is not only new to me, but relatively new just in general. I think. I mean, I've heard your name a number of times, kind of over the past, I don't know, 6 months or so, maybe less, maybe more. I can't. No, time doesn't exist anymore, so no one really knows. But you have come across. I have come across your name fairly often recently, and I know that this is a relatively new project, and so I'm hoping the best way we can start this off is if the two of you want to introduce yourselves and then give a bit of background about what it is that you do musically.
Yeah, I'm Danny or Danielle. For Poodle Paddle, I do guitar and vocals, but I play a couple other instruments too. And yeah, like we started this project fairly recently, like over the pandemic kind of. So we're just figuring it out still. Yeah, but the last few months with everything opening back up have been really fun. We've been able to play lots of shows.
Well, that's why your name's been showing up a lot, I guess, right?
Yeah, we've been like very active since we started, I would say. I'm Dawson, by the way, and I play drums for Poodle Paddle. And yeah, like we started, I guess, like 2020, kind of like in the summer, or that's when we started jamming. And then about a year later, we kind of started touching our toes to the water, live performance and everything.
So this project has been pretty much entirely during the pandemic, right? Your whole existence as Poodle Paddle has been during this sort of awful time when people can't go to shows. Until recently, it's difficult for a lot of bands to even rehearse or get together. What has that been like, sort of trying to launch something in a time when nobody can really do much at all?
I mean, it kind of worked out timing wise a little bit okay, where we started jamming during lockdown, kind of when lockdown was just starting to ease up a little bit, I guess. We were able to actually see each other in person.
Yeah.
And then by the time that restrictions loosened enough where you could actually gather a little bit, that was kind of when we were ready to start, performing in front of people. And so that worked out all right, I would say. But yeah, it gave us enough time to sort of get to know each other as a band, and start to build that chemistry.
Is the band just the two of you, or are there other members? Because I've seen some videos of live stuff online. It looks like you have a more filled out group with you.
Yeah, the band is just us, like we're Poodle Paddle, and we do some shows, just the two of us, but normally if we're playing a show, we're like, let's get a bassist in, let's get steel drum, tambourine, additional guitar, like whatever. So we play with a lot of our friends a lot, and it's nice because then it kind of allows us to have like a different sound for every show to sort of match with the bands on the bill that we're playing with. Yeah.
Well, that maybe brings up another question then is I hate asking this question, and everyone hates answering it because it's a shitty question, and especially these days where there's so many subgenres of something core and this, post this. But if someone, runs into you haven't seen them in a while, and they say, hey, I hear you're in a band, what's sort of the quick version that you give to describe what it is that you do? Because, I mean, having listened to your single and some other stuff I found on YouTube, I have some ideas of what it sounds like to me, but I mean, how do you define it? Because there's a lot there. It's not just very obviously one genre.
Yeah, it really depends. Even show to show, single to single, I feel like there's a lot of variation. So I don't know, if people ask me what genre we are, I kind of throw like 4 or 5 at them. Like we're somewhere in between there. So, like punk is definitely in there, but like indie rock, tree pop is one, like it's definitely an influence of ours. And we do a lot of covers of like tree pop songs. Some of our other like recordings, aside from the single we have released, is like very, very, I don't know, more like pop, very soft, compared to what, a lot of people have seen from us. So.
Is that, I mean, do you both agree with that sort of nebulous definition?
Yeah, like if someone asks me, what kind of music do you play? I usually just say like punk rock, indie. I don't know, but there is like a lot more to it than that for sure. But definitely like twee pop, goth rock, surf, I don't know, hardcore a little bit. We scream a lot. We whisper a lot. Yeah. Like it's kind of all about like the juxtaposition between like really hard music and really soft music. So that's like where the Poodle Paddle comes from, because we're like cute and fluffy, but also like yeah.
Well, and I was thinking about this when I was listening to your single too, is that, I mean, I might be stuck in a former era where I'm trying to pin everything down by genre, because I think we're in an age now where it's a lot more sort of accepted and even welcomed to be so fluid as far as what kind of stuff you're playing and what kind of music you're taking in and you're putting out there. I mean, I haven't played in a band in probably 15 years myself, and back then it was definitely more important to be, oh, we're this guy, we're a hardcore band, or we're a punk band, or we're a metal band, or whatever, and then all the little subgenres within that. But now it just seems like because everyone has access to all of history's recorded music
Yeah.
at the touch of a button, like, do you think those distinctions maybe aren't as important in today's world?
I would personally say so. I mean, yeah, like for us, I don't really like to try to fit us into a genre because really, like, it changes a lot. It's changed over the course of our band. It used to be, we had a phase where we were like a lot more hardcore. Now we've had phases where we're just, yeah, kind of more pop almost. And then it changes, like coming back to like, how we have different members at every show, kind of like it changes show to show. So, and I mean, that's given us the opportunity also to be able to like play shows with Hopscotch Battle Scars and Printport, but then also play shows with bands like Jamboree, Marin. So really like sticking our fingers into different scenes and that sort of thing. Fun.
Do you think that I mean, is that kind of what you want to do going forward too, is to be able to sort of traverse between different scenes and sort of alter your show depending on who you're playing with?
Yeah, I really like the diversity. And a lot of people say, like, going to a Poodle Paddle show, they never know what to expect. They never know what it's going to sound like. And I love that. I think it's really exciting. And that was kind of why I didn't want to like actually release any music for a long time, because I'm like, I don't want them to know what they're getting,
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's really nice being kind of versatile enough to play with, all of our favorite bands in Winnipeg. Like, it's like, okay, I see your sound and we can do something complimentary for like whatever it may be,
Yeah, you just tweak it a little bit because you're obviously not changing the style 100% to fit in with the show, but you have enough different things, kind of different elements in there that you can, push it a little bit one way or the other.
Exactly. Yeah.
One of the things I like to try and do over the course of doing the show is I always want to try and place people in my head as far as where they sort of exist within the local music scene. So were there certain bands that the two of you were really into, coming up when you first started going to shows, or maybe even bands now that you kind of feel are very not necessarily influential but important to you from the local community that you kind of see as something that maybe made you want to get into this and made you want to start playing shows?
For me, like, we both moved to Winnipeg, both Dawson and I, in like 2019. So
okay,
like,
so you're still fresh. You're still, yeah.
Yeah, we're spring chickens. And in 2019, I saw a Marin show and was like, oh my God, I love that. And yeah, like, it's kind of been a dream to play with them. I mean, at that point, I wasn't even really playing guitar seriously or in a band. And at our last show, they opened for us. So
Cool.
kind of a full circle moment. But yeah, like, for me, love Marin, love Paige Drobot, and Hopscotch Battle Scars too. Like, all of our first shows, we played with them too. So we're kind of, sister bands, kind of. Yeah. It's very fun.
I think that's where I first heard of you, actually, is because I kind of randomly stumbled upon Hopscotch Battle Scars, and I love it. Like, they're so good, and it just seemed like, yeah, your name was coming up a lot, sort of on things about shows they were doing and stuff. So yeah, I think that's where I first kind of clued into who you were. But yeah, great band.
Yeah. Yeah, for me personally, I grew up a little bit closer to Winnipeg than Danny, and so I've like been coming to shows and stuff in the city for a while, and also a lot of like folk fests. And so a lot of, I don't know, my local influences were like bands like Sweet Alibi, a bit earlier than that, like White Horse, bands like that. And then since I've moved to the city, I have to agree, like Marin, and I don't know, a lot of like those sort of like the indie rock bands are just, yeah, really inspiring, like really sort of what I wanted to like emulate when I was first starting a band,
Yeah, I also really love Virgo Rising. I forgot to mention them. They have such like a soft, beautiful sound.
Yeah, they're very good.
Jaywood too.
Jaywood's great.
Yeah, Jaywood is actually my mentor, like, over the pandemic through Manitoba Music. So I got to like meet him and chat, and like he like helped me a lot with like figuring out kind of how to start the band and take it a bit more seriously. So yeah, we definitely owe a lot to a lot of people in the scene.
That's awesome. Yeah. And then those, I mean, and all the names you're mentioning too are all bands that are doing something, I think, relatively unique too, right? I mean, like Hopscotch Battle Scars, for example, is doing another band that has a very kind of shifting sound. I mean, you could put them in the hardcore category, but they also do much more extreme stuff than hardcore. And Jaywood is kind of floating between genres as well, and Marin as well. So yeah, I can see why some of those maybe appeal to you.
Yeah, I think we've been inspired by bands that also kind of don't necessarily care about genre, and just kind of want to create what they want to create. I think that's definitely shown up for us as well.
So as newcomers, I guess, relative newcomers to the Winnipeg music scene, what has it been? Have you felt, I guess, acceptance from the community? That's something I always wonder about, because I mean, I've been in Winnipeg my whole life. I started playing in bands when I was 12 in like 95. And so, I mean, everyone I know is a local musician. So, the idea of being accepted in the local music scene, it was never a thing. I've just kind of born into it, right? But what is it like as an outsider, I guess, coming in here? And I mean, Winnipeg, I don't know whether it had a reputation or not from as a music city from where you were coming from, or what you thought of it, but was it easy to kind of get into the scene and sort of feel welcomed?
It's interesting because I feel like our first show ever was a house show, and there was like a decent number of people, and I feel like we kind of made our own scene just with like kids from the university and queer kids from around the city. Like we played our show and we're kind of hanging out and partying after, and we're like, okay, who all here is gay? And like everybody raised their hand, and it's like we kind of last summer sort of created this scene just out of like our friends. And then being able to like, go to venues where there's like not necessarily a regular crowd that shows up, but we still have like our crowd of like 20 people who kind of show up and are super sweet, and being able to kind of like take that everywhere we go has just been like super amazing, because then we're like happy no matter where we are. But it's been fun getting to know everybody in the Winnipeg music scene. And I don't know,
it's like never very sorry.
Well, we've never had that like scary like jumping out into like this unknown thing, because we've always had like a little crew with us. So
that's great. Nice. That's great.
I like kind of like part of me always wanted to be part of the Winnipeg music scene. I didn't necessarily know what it was, but I was like hoping, as a drummer, that one day I'd make my way. And I don't know, like it kind of just happened really quickly, like over the course of playing shows and stuff. Like I went from not really knowing anybody who was in a band to now kind of the same as you, where I feel like most of my friends are in bands, and like everybody knows somebody else who's in a band.
Yeah. And the good thing about that too is I feel like the music scene is so incestuous too, where everyone is in each other's bands at some point, or has played a show with each other, that it's sort of just like the community just develops pretty quickly around that, because you all have like one degree of separation from each other. Even successful popular bands, there's probably some guy who played guitar on one of their records who is in some band playing opening for some basement band in a bar that you never heard of until today, right? So
especially when we have like 2 or so new people coming and playing with us, almost every show.
Of course. So is that idea of having your friends come in and join in on whatever instruments, is that sort of, do you plan that ahead of time, or is it sort of an open thing where someone's probably going to show up on stage with like a tambourine or whatever?
Okay, tambourine, we kind of know someone's just going to show up.
Okay,
but like like for bass and like additional guitar, we rehearse.
You need to rehearse, Is there like a revolving group of people that you sort of work with for that though, or is it? I mean, do you keep it sort of fairly open as far as someone might show up and say, "Hey, I play bass," and you can bring them in?
I think it kind of depends on the show. Like if it's a funkier show, we'll try to find a funkier bassist, and if it's a more heavy show, we find a heavier guitarist and stuff. And sometimes like we have a show coming up and we've like asked a bunch of our friends and no one can join us, so then we just post online like, does anybody want to play with us? And
we always get like people.
We have connected with such wonderful people. Really amazing.
It's great how people just in Winnipeg people see that in Winnipeg and they're like, hell yeah, I'll play a show with this band. I'll go and practice with them 2 or 3 times and get on stage.
I think part of that might be because of the pandemic too, right? Everyone's been so deprived of being able to go to shows or play shows that now you just want to take whatever opportunity there is, because you can finally get back out there, and a lot of people are craving it, I think.
Yeah.
So you have, at the time we're recording this anyway, you have one single out. What is the plan going forward? Are you going to be putting out any kind of a longer release? Like, are you just doing singles? Do you have a plan as far as releasing music goes?
We have Oh, sorry.
So yeah, we have another single that we're planning to release, hopefully pretty soon. And then we have sort of like one or two other songs also recorded, and we're planning, yeah, hopefully like releasing an EP. I'm not exactly sure when, but maybe in the fall, early next year. And then, yeah, I mean, we're just like kind of seeing where the process takes us. We're not really rushing things, I would say.
Well, and that makes sense, right? Because you're still again fairly new. I mean, I know 2019 or 2020 sounds like not that, a long time ago now, but because there's been no shows for most of that time, you're still fairly new to the whole thing, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
are you? I guess this kind of relates to what I was talking about earlier about sort of the way music is consumed now, and everyone has access to everything. And what is your idea of how to release music in 2022? I mean, and the reason I ask this is because like I'm old, I'm almost 40. I listen to physical media pretty much exclusively. I had to dig around to find your song because I don't use Spotify or Apple Music or any of that stuff. But I know that I'm in the minority, and I know that most people are completely plugged into all those streaming services. And for a lot of that stuff, the key is singles over EPs or over albums because of the way that music is just listened to. Like, does that come into any, do you think about that when it comes to releasing music? Like the idea of, is someone going to sit and listen to a whole EP, or who's going to be finding this? Like, is that part of the decision making at this point, or are you just happy to release whatever?
To be honest, I don't think too much about anything, but no, well, I don't know, like with the EP that we're planning, it's like I want there to be a cohesive flow when you're like sitting down and listening. Like the one that we have right now that we want to release in winter, it's like winter depression vibe,
Okay.
Want it to be like a really moody thing. And then just for our singles, like releasing the things that we're the most proud of. But yeah, I definitely like, I don't think I have like the best grasp on like recording things. Like it feels weird to me to have like our songs kind of be like a object that like is unchanging and like is out there on the internet for anyone to see at any time, always the same, like a product like that. Because I don't know, I love live performance and like that aspect of music so much. So
yeah, I think we're definitely more naturally a live band, but it's also kind of exciting to try and figure out how to best capture that, I suppose. And I think I mean both of us I think are like people who listen to full albums and stuff. And I think we definitely both want to, like release an EP at least, or eventually down the line an album that really, like Danny said, has a flow and a mood, and it was really cohesive. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that too, because I, as someone who also sits down and listens to something back to front, it's nice to have records that do have that flow, because it seems like it's becoming more rare because everything is kind of taken into pieces and listened to individually. So yeah, that's just good. Always good to hear. I guess you could become one of those like Grateful Dead type bands where you just record every live show you do and then release them all.
That would be ideal. We need someone to record our live shows. Well, because we put almost like album level thought into each of our set lists. We're like, we're gonna start out with this kind of emotion, and then it's got to have like a really cohesive flow and like emotional roller coaster throughout the set. Because with a band like us where we kind of go from soft to hard, it's like how can you do that in an elegant way where like as somebody who's like in the crowd dancing, you're just like dancing the whole time and not like taken off of guard and like shook, unless we like want to shock you, you know what I mean?
Right.
No.
You don't want it to be suddenly jarring and switch to something really heavy after they've been enjoying the twee stuff for
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do
So
like a little bit of jarring, but like
of course,
like a little bit.
Controlled jarring.
Controlled
so
jarring,
is there like a significant amount of planning that goes into that before every show?
Yeah, we like always sit down and I don't know, we decide like we pick out, usually like, we start out with like 10 to 12 songs kind of that we're like, this would be a good vibe for the venue and everything the other bands we're playing with. And then we kind of sit down and talk about like what the order of the show is going to be, like which songs lead nicely into the other, and then we think a little bit about sort of the conclusions and openings and sort of thing. And then of course like the hard and the soft, that's kind of always the big question, is like how do we go into this sort of like hardcore whatever punk music that we do from the really soft sort of Danny singing super light little drums.
Is it difficult to go I mean, maybe this is a question as far as vocals are concerned. Is it difficult to go from the soft singing to screaming and then back? Like, do you have to? Because I've been in bands where I was screaming but there was no
Yeah.
soft singing. It was just all screaming. So I can handle that part, but it seems like it'll be tricky to kind of get yourself into maybe not the headspace, maybe not isn't the right word, but like get your voice able to shift back and forth like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I kind of used to have more of a hard time with it. Like if we were doing heavier songs, I might like totally scratch my throat before like going back into the soft things, and then that's hard. But I've been trying to get better at vocals, and at this point, like it's something that's easy and feels really natural and really fun for me to play with too. Like when we play our single "Who You Really Are" live, like I love going from like the like disco chorus into like just screaming and like watching everybody in the audience be like, oh, we're doing this now. Like I love it.
Yeah.
Then that'd be as a good definition of if you're trying to find a genre, your genre is we're doing this now.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So if people want to find you online, I mean, I know you don't have a lot of stuff out right now. I mean, at the time we're recording this, it's just the one single. But what's the best way to sort of keep in touch with what you're doing as far as shows and to hear new music when it comes out and stay on top of things as far as what Poodle Paddle's up to?
Like, definitely our Instagram is like the most like active thing. That's where we mostly post things. We talk about all our shows, little videos, and like when we release music, that's where we tend to announce it. So yeah, that's like the best place to keep up with us, I would say.
Yeah, with events and stuff. If you want to see like embarrassing videos from our first show, that's on our YouTube. So
I watched those. Yeah.
We didn't know what we were doing then, but
Where was that show? Like what?
Danny's backyard.
Oh, that was backyard show. Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
How
that was
did-
their very first.
How did that go over? I mean, like I have had backyard shows in my house a lot too. Well, I haven't recently because of COVID, but it's always like really chill stuff. But I mean, some of the songs you guys are doing in those videos are significantly louder. And like, how did that go over with the neighbors?
actually I invited my neighbors, and like one of them came with her son, and
Nice.
like she was living for it. And like after we were done, Hopscotch Battle Scars played, and she was like headbanging there
Nice.
and stuff, and she's like the sweetest lady with like the most beautiful garden on the block, so it means a lot that she would come.
Yeah, she
But-
brought like watermelon for everybody.
that's awesome.
Just the best. Yeah, no, I have pretty great neighbors. So although the last house show we did, my other neighbor was like, my son's
Good.
studying for an exam, and I was like, oh, okay. And then we just brought everything down into the basement, and it's soundproof enough, so it's fine after that.
Yeah.
I'm definitely a fan of house shows. I think that I think a lot of people are after kind of the past 2.5 years of everyone being sort of locked down and uncomfortable around each other and everything. Having that kind of small, intimate venue to watch a show is maybe a little less terrifying, I guess, coming out of COVID. I guess that works well for what you were saying earlier about having that sort of 20-person, group of people who go to your shows and who are sort of this own little scene you've made up. Just from starting out, that seems like a great way for them to check you out too, because it's it's you and your friends and you're doing this little casual, small, intimate show.
Yeah. We never would have really got to venues if we hadn't just thrown our own shows, in Danny's backyard. In my living room, we did a show, and then we went back to Danny's backyard. And that's sort of, how we made new friends and like made new musician friends, found people to play with us, found other bands. And then, eventually we were able to sort of take that to the Handsome Daughter, the album.
Right on. Well, it's good to see, because I mean, I think that one of my biggest sort of beefs as an old person about the way music is and a lot of bands are these days is that a lot of people seem to be sort of skipping what I feel are the really important DIY punk rock steps to becoming a band, and they're just going out and like getting banners printed and like everything's all professional and polished, and they haven't even practiced yet. And I mean, like, I think that going through that route of doing the house shows and the basement shows to 5 people and all that stuff, and the DIY aspect of it, I think is really the best way for a band to get to the next level and get shows and meet people and get it kind of integrated into the scene. So I'm glad to hear you doing that, and that kind of DIY spirit still exists, because it's easy to feel like it doesn't when you see sort of very polished internet presences of new bands and it seems like they've skipped those fundamental steps.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't trade the like DIY spirit for anything. Like we're in Dawson's garage spray painting panties for merch. We're like posting silly looking poodles on the Instagram just for fun. Like it's not very polished, but we just want to have fun, and like make people laugh. I mean, we're entertainers. I'm a little bit of a clown. Like I don't need to be taken too seriously, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
that's
it's nice
awesome.
to be approachable. Yeah.
For sure. And that's good. I think that's especially in an era where, and I feel like the whole time I've been talking about like, oh, these days things are different. But I mean, because of things like Instagram and everything, you don't need to be, but there is an expectation that you're sort of personable and open and yourself sort of online as well as that shows. So, I mean, having that kind of attitude, I think is probably the best way to go.